We try to analyze how global markets are doing early in trade on Friday as well as how they closed on Thursday. It's been an extremely interesting week of trade this week with the US Federal Reserve's announcements along with the Evergrande situation developing quick and fast. The Federal Reserve, which indicated on Wednesday that it doesn't see an imminent rollback of monetary stimulus, has led markets higher, obviously, on Wednesday. All US indices were up over 1% or around 1% in trade on Wednesday. Thursday was no different. All US indices rose over 1% each in trade on Thursday. Second consecutive day of gains for all indices. The Dow was up around 1.5% in trade. The S&P 500 was up around 1/1/5% in trade, and the Nasdaq closed up over 1% in trade as well. Moving on to Europe, Bank of England kept monetary policy unchanged and downgraded economic growth projections for the third quarter of this year. The FTSE 100 in turn closed flat with a negative bias, was down around 7 basis points after spending 2 days in the green. European stocks though closed higher as investors digested news from both the Bank of England as well as the Federal Reserve. Mind you, Europe had not really dissected the news of the Federal Reserve prior to close on Wednesday. So the DAX closed around 0.9% higher, with IT and communication being the leaders of the pack. The CAC 40 was up around 1% in trade yesterday and was up for the third day in a row. And the Stock 600 index was up just above 0.9% in trade yesterday. The Evergrande situation, shares in Hong Kong surged more than 17% for the stock, has been down over 80% in the year-to-date period roughly. Asian stocks mostly rose though in trade yesterday. Shanghai was up around 0.4% in trade yesterday for a second consecutive day this week. The Hang Seng was also up 1/1/5% in trade yesterday, with real estate being a real mover. The ASX 200 was higher by around 1% in trade yesterday, and the Kospi ended in the red by around 2/5% in trade yesterday. That's the first trading day of the week for the Kospi. In early trade today, the Nikkei rose around 1.82%. The ASX 200 is trading flat with a positive bias up around 3 basis points in early trade today. The Kospi is up around 0.5% in early trade today. The SGX Nifty futures closed higher by over 1.5% in trade yesterday and is higher by around 0.25% in trade today. Good cues for Friday's day of trade. Hopefully the day ends in the green. Moving on to commodities, the London Metal Exchange was down around 1/3%. The index was down around 1/3%, taking a pause in trade after gains on Wednesday. Oil prices are now at a 2-month high. It's at around $73 a barrel, Brent at around $77 a barrel. Gold has obviously fallen on the rise of yields. Gold is at around $17.50 an ounce. The London Metal Index for copper was down around 13 basis points. Moving on to currency, the dollar index has had a mixed week and was down around 40 basis points in trade yesterday. Is down around another 3 basis points in early trade today. Treasury yields have climbed as investors focus on the eventual Fed taper. The 10-year Treasury yield is at around 1.43%, a good steep climb for treasuries. Bitcoin is up around 2.85% in early trade today and is almost at the $45,000 mark. That's a wrap up on cues across commodities and global indices.